Hello everyone, and welcome to the lecture where we implement a deck. So we're going to implement our own deck class, and just like the other lectures, before we begin, let's go ahead and take a look at the methods and attributes that will be in our class. First off, we're going to have deck. Deck creates a new deck that is empty. It's not going to need any parameters, and it's just going to return an empty deck. Then we're going to have adding and removal methods. So we'll have an add front and an add rear. They'll both add items and take items as parameters, and then either put them to the front or the rear, depending on which method's called, and it will return nothing. Then we're going to have remove front and remove rear. These methods are going to remove items either from the front or the rear of the deck. They won't need any parameters, and they're going to return an item. The deck will then be modified. Then we have isEmpty to test to see whether the deck is empty or not. It won't need any parameters and will return a Boolean value, true or false, depending if the deck is empty or not. Then we have size, which just returns the number of items in the deck. It won't need any parameters and it's just going to return an integer. So, as always, if you go to the Jupyter notebooks, you'll have an implementation of deck notebook, which is what I'm looking at here, as well as the code that we're going to explain and code out right now. So let's go ahead and hop over to the Jupyter notebook and code this out. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. So we have our class, deck. I'll go ahead and pass in object, this is going to be an object. And I'm just going to basically initiate this class. Again, just like we've been doing for stacks and queues, we're going to have the items be defined by a list. Then we'll create our isEmpty method. That just takes in self. And that's going to return self.items is equal to an empty list. So that's similar to the same method we used for stacks and queues. It's just checking if the items is an empty list, and if that's true, it will return a true Boolean. Otherwise, it will return false. Okay, here's the next method, add front. So we're going to take in an item as well as self. And what we're going to do is just append that item. So remember, append, when you have a list, we'll put it at the very end. In this case, we'll call that the front of our deck. For the add rear method, what we want to do is again take an item, say self.items, and in this case, we're going to insert at the 0 index that item. So this will allow us to add that item at the rear. Then let's go ahead and remove those items. So we'll make two removal methods, a remove front and a remove rear. Let's go ahead and zoom in on it just so we can really see it. For remove front, we're going just to take in self and we will return self.items.pop. And then for remove rear, what we're going to do is take in self, and we will return self.items, but in this case, we're going to pop at the 0th index. Okay, and then just for the last method, which is size, we're just going to return the length of that items list, which will be self.items. Alright, let's go ahead and play around with this and make sure it all makes sense. So we'll create a variable d and create an instance of our deck class that we just made. We'll add to the front of it, we'll say hello, just a string hello, and then we'll add to the rear of it another string world. So our hello world strings. Let's go ahead and check the size. It should be 2. Alright, that's looking good. And now let's go ahead and make sure that the ordering makes sense to us. So what we're going to do is print d-remove front plus a space string. And then we're going to say d-remove rear. And just a reminder, I'm just doing tab there. to get that fill out or that autocomplete. And if I run this, I get hello world. So I removed both the front and the rear. Let's go ahead and check the size now. It's 0, which means if I call is empty, I should get a true Boolean. All right, that's it for the deck. So you can kind of see how this was a mix between the stack and the queue classes, especially since the adding front and rear and the removal front and rear methods looked really similar to almost like a combination of both stacks and queues. Again, the main thing to be aware of is that you're going to have to be careful as far as keeping these in order if you decide to use your own deck creation, especially in an interview setting where you may be asked tricky questions on adding and removing items to really test your understanding of a deck. Okay, that's it for the lectures. Up next are the interview questions of the course. So I'll see you at the next lecture, and thank you everyone.